Well, after a recent integration of Ecamm into the Loupedeck, we thought it was about time to make a video for you showing how to set all this up so that you can now live stream with Ecamm and use this as your controller. This isn't a review video. We are going to be doing that one separately, so be sure to check out up here for that. And if you need help on Ecamm, please know we've got a massive playlist full of videos for you to help you through all that side of it. So I'm going to be going through this one a bit quickly, assuming that you've already seen that or knowing that I can point you over there. Now, the first thing we need to do is download the Loupedeck software. We've put a link in the description to this download page. So come over here and you're going to be on a Mac. So we're downloading the Mac 5.0.1 at the moment. This might be changed depending on when you're watching this video. But we simply click there and it's downloading the installer. Okay, we can close down this browser for now. This is our installer, so click at the top here. It'll ask you where you want to install it. Agree with everything, install it there on your hard drive. Wants to control system events, allowing control while provide access to documents. That's fine, click OK. OK, installation was successful. We can move this installer to the bin and we can close these down. So you'll find that at the top here now, you've got this little Loupedeck icon. It looks like a little Pac-Man symbol. Open Loupedeck. Okay, and this is the screen you're going to see. Now, we haven't actually connected the Loupedeck yet, so it doesn't know what we've got. We're going to click up here because Loupedeck Live is the one that we're using. Wizard's going to guide us through install it. Now, it's asking me to jump in on the console. We haven't installed it yet, so let's get hold of this Loupedeck and put it together. Very simple and straightforward. Now, if you haven't put this together yet, you've got a little bracket on here, so rather than it laying flat on the desk, if you want it to sit up slightly, which is what I'm going to be doing, all you do is you connect in the back of here, you line up these two little dots into here. And as you push it forward, they just lock into place on the front. Hopefully that makes sense. And then that will just sit nicely on your desk like this. And then you've got this cable. We're going to put this right angle end into here. And then depending on whether you've got the newer USB-C input, or I'm going to put this into an older one here so I can connect that into the adapter and plug this into the side of my monitor. And hopefully, yep, there we go. We've got some power on this. And now it's going to walk me through this tutorial by hitting jump in. So it's asking me, please choose the main use for your Loupedeck. We are going to select streaming. Let's use the buttons on it. So they've put a profile together for us. It's telling me touch and swipe. There are 12 customizable touch buttons, assign, swap and remove actions with drag and drop. It's then explaining to us that we've got these set of buttons along the bottom here. And I'm going to walk you through this in a minute anyway, really. But so you can actually skip this introduction if you want. What you've got here, what is different to if you've used a Stream Deck in the past or you've heard about them, typically they just have a set of buttons. The unique thing with this Loupedeck is that we've actually got dials on the side here as well. A set of buttons in the middle, dials down the side, and these extra numbers along the bottom. I'll explain how we're using this, and come the end of it, what we're going to create on this video, I'm going to actually give you as a download. So we'll just skip through this. Okay, so I'm going to click finish, and as it says, it's then going to close this down. And here we are. So now this has already been set up for me. They've already put a whole load of buttons and things in. Actually, we're not going to use any of those. We're going to come up to the top here. So if I just show you around, that the first of these tabs is, which device are we using? Well, we're on this Loupedeck Live. And the second one along then is actually setting up these profiles. What we can do is to import a profile. Now we're going to import a profile into this from Ecamm. This is why all of a sudden this Loupedeck has been of interest to us, because only recently have Ecamm created a profile, Loupedeck have updated their end of it, and the two are talking together. Really exciting. So let me open up Ecamm Live. And look at this. Install Loupedeck plugin. So to use Ecamm Live with Loupedeck, install the Ecamm Live plugin. Install now. Loupedeck plugin installed. It seemed like it kicked off Loupedeck while it was doing it. Not a problem. We can come straight back to the top here onto the logo and open Loupedeck again. And with a bit of magic, now we can come down onto our profile, and Ecamm Live is down here. And by default, this has been created then. Ecamm have put together a suggested template in here that we can use that shows previous, next scenes, play, pause, live demo mode, all these different buttons. I'm going to go through these with you. But notice then we've got dials down the side, buttons across the center here. Not everything can be used on dials, and actually this is one of the things that we'll get into this in a few minutes. I can see lots of options where I would like to see this integration working. I accept that this is version 1.0 of this, and I'm hopeful that with feedback Ecamm will be making more things available that can talk to the Loupedeck. But the idea is, if you haven't used a device like this or the Stream Deck before, that instead of me using my mouse and going around on my screen trying to click things on Ecamm, I can actually control it all from here, this little control panel. Now, everyone you talk to is going to use this a different way. I'm going to walk you through the setup that I would use this for, or do use this for, but I'm also going to talk through other options with you so that you could maybe get ideas and think, yeah, that's a good idea, that's how I'm going to use this. Now, what I want to explain to you first is what you see in front of you here is called a workspace. So as we come along this top here, let me just explain how this works then. So we've got our device at the top here, which is the Loupedeck Live. We've got our profile, which is Ecamm Live on here. And then we've got this workspace. So we've just got our default workspace. We can create multiple workspaces. We're going to. The idea is what you've got in front of here, although we've got 12 buttons in front of us and 6 dials down the sides, we've actually got more than that, because we can go over to what it calls different pages. And as you can see on here, Ecamm by default kind of put everything in for us. So we've got page 1 is the default, page 2 is sound effects. See how that just kind of slid across there to sound effects if we want them. And then we've got an audio one put in here on the third one. And I can actually do that by wiping across here. Again, something we couldn't do on the Stream Deck. But actually, because this is touch sensitive and not clickable buttons, it means I can jump between multiple pages on here. And notice at the bottom, this is page 1, page 2, page 3. So the other way that I can move between them is by clicking down here, and it will jump between them. But you might spot that these don't seem to be attached, and this is the reason that I wouldn't use pages most of the time. I would actually set up a new workspace, because when I come on page 1, notice that what I've got allocated to the dials down the sides, I come across to the second one, that doesn't change. I can actually swipe up on here between pages 1 and 2 for these. Strangely, really, the dials seem to work independently to the buttons in the middle if you're looking at pages. So we could set up a page that were our default buttons. We could set up a page that was for interviews. What I'm going to show you is the way we're doing it is, instead of me clicking down here to go from page 1 to page 2, if I go from workspace 1 to workspace 2, then I can get the dials and the buttons to all change. I just find that a much better way to go. It's a shame, and maybe again that'll be an update, that you can link these in pages, so as you go to page 2, both of them move together. Who knows? Now, I want to start from scratch with this and just show you how I would build this up, and so that I can give you this as a download at the end. So rather than me working in Ecamm Live here, I'm going to say add profile. Add an empty profile. And we're going to call it here Adrian Salisbury, and then you'll know who it came from. Let's close this. So now we've got a complete blank canvas in here. Now, I haven't showed you this right hand side of the navigation because we haven't needed to use it yet. So by default, it's put in here a couple of things for me. I've got a clock in there for some reason and a mouse wheel vertical. We're actually gonna have a little bit of a play in that. There are some things that you can do in here outside of the box, outside of Ecamm, that I think could be of interest to you. What I want to just point out as well, and we'll put a link to this in the description, Ecamm have got a help page talking about this, using Loupedeck with Ecamm, really talking you through this, how to download it if it didn't do like it did for me then, and prompt you to install it. well, then you can download it and install it over here. So there are some tutorials over here that you might want to go to, and it will also show you the kind of commands that it's put in there for you by default. Just didn't want to forget that. So there's a link to that in the description. Let's jump back into our setup. Now, if I just pull this down a minute, what we're doing and the way we need to set this up is on my screen here. This is how I set up the controls for the Loupedeck. I don't need to have this app up and running while we're doing it, while we're on Ecamm. It's just purely while we're programming this up in the first place. But I want to have Ecamm open because the way I would work this, so when I'm on a live, and the reason I would use this really is just a quick way for me to jump between scenes without having to look up here and move my mouse over and click on which scene I want to go to, or maybe an overlay and I'm looking down here. For some of you, you're working on a 15-inch MacBook Pro, and actually the space is pretty tight on here. Again, another benefit of using something like this is it means I can close down these application windows, but we're going to have them open for now just so that you can see what I'm doing and adding in here. But I don't need every function available to me. The main ones that I would want to use this for would be to change scenes over. So, I'm on a live, and as you can see up here, I've got this one, just my front camera at the minute. And then I want to be able to click down here because now I want to look at these comments that have been coming in. And typically I would do this on a live, and I'd be working away over here and bring that up on screen. I might want to do a screen share, and so I bring this scene up, and then come the end of it, we cut across to an outro video, and that ends it off, and then it will end the live at the end of it. So typically that's what I would want to do, and that's all I would be using this for. In addition to changing those scenes around, it allows me to do things if I'm working away up here and just want to lose all these overlays and things. It will allow me to turn these on and off. Don't know if you realize that was a thing, but you can get rid of all these overlays. And then for me, I use live demo mode a lot because I'm talking about Ecamm, and quite often I want to be able to share my whole screen as I'm doing a tutorial and walking through this. So that would be another key button that I would regularly be going to on a live, rather than needing the shortcut or going up to the menu. For me to just be able to hit a button and go, right, let me just show you what I'm doing here. Bang, live demo mode. It is really powerful. So I'm going to put those few buttons in first of all, nice and quick. I've already made them. So what I'm thinking, I'm going to have along the top row here the ones that I just want to be able to go to quite quickly. So to start filling this out now, I'm going to come over to the side here and notice that Ecamm Live is selected. See that there are other things in here as well. So I can actually I can put shortcuts in here for my desktop controls if I wanted to do a shortcut command or something like that. I've got Spotify, there's Philips Hue lights, things like that that are available to me as well that I can mess around with, but we're just looking here at Ecamm. So come in here, manage plugins if you can't see it. You can actually turn off these other ones so it all looks a bit tidier. And now I've just got my Ecamm one open. I don't know why it seems to hold it in twice, but never mind. And then below that, in folders down here are all the different commands that I can do. So comments, I can put a button on there that says add last comment. Under my controls, we've got go live. Little warning on this, and Owen pointed this one out to me. These aren't like a Stream Deck where you have to physically click a button down. You can accidentally just rest your button or touch your button as you're coming across here. And the other side of go live is end live, and if you click it, it doesn't say are you sure, it'll just stop your live. So I'd be a little bit careful of allocating a button over here to go live and end live. This is the one that I was just talking about, hide controls. So all we do is drag this up, and I can put it on top of that one, and it puts me now this icon up here, and it's instantly working. When I touch on the Loupedeck, there we go, hiding the controls, and as you see, it goes from one way to the other. Very cool. Live demo mode happens to be the next one that I wanted to use, so I can click on that and drag it up here to live demo mode. And so you can see I'm starting to fill this out along the top with buttons. We can go through next PDF page. If I downloaded a PDF as an overlay, that'll let me click through those. Next scene, play pause video, things like that, preview mode. So lots in here. By all means, go and play with it. You hopefully know what some of these things are. If you don't know what they are, please do go through our YouTube videos. Things like preview mode, if you put that into our playlist, you'll see that we've made a video on that. A view account, if you want that, you can have that in there. So again, to make it quite easy for Notice if I click on that, it then brings up this window below. Maybe I want that in there, so I can put that at the top and it will always just show me how many viewers are on. Let me just close that for a minute. So that's those controls there. Input level, we've got guests in here, and notice the symbol has changed. So we had a button there, a finger on a button. This one is a dial. Are you guessing where this might go? Input levels. These are the audio levels that we can put in for our guests. And honestly, this is one of the things that to me makes this a game changer. When we're on a live and we're bringing a guest on, unfortunately, it's quite hard to get down. If you've got one guest, it's okay because you can actually change it up here as interview, and that's fine. If you've got multiple guests on and one of them is sounding louder than the other, just changing interview up here will adjust everybody. So down in the interview window down here, there will be a very small little overlay that you can drag across the volume controls for each of your guests. Now, way better and new to the Loupedeck, really, no other device does this. You can actually allocate the different guests, their microphone volumes to a dial. If I click on there, then as you see, it brings that down. If I just drag it over to this wheel at the top, I can say guest 1, guest 2, guest 3, and then what it will do is as I adjust this wheel on here, it's going to adjust just that guest's microphone. This is awesome. It does mean that you want to be monitoring, and really on an interview you ought to be anyway. Now I should point out, Owen discovered this, that guest 1, 2, 3, if you allocate someone to guest 1 or 2, that's not necessarily picking that up as the order. What it is doing is the order that they're in your interview panel down here. So the first person that joins will appear just under you, the next person will come under them, the next one will come under them. That is the order that they're seen in here. So you need to have this interview panel open and be seeing what order they're in, and if Bob's the first person that joins, well, he's going to be guest 1. So then what you can do is over here, instead of me adjusting everyone's volume, I can just adjust guest 1. What that means is, and you should be doing this on an interview anyway, really, is that you're going to want to have some headphones in so that you can hear those guests. And really then up in your output audio monitor, you're going to select your headphones, and you just need to be able to have a listen so you can hear if they're coming through too loud or too quiet. Now, this is great if you're running that show and you can just hear that guest 2 or 3 are louder than the other, and you want to just be able to, well, I can just, subtly adjust that dial and play with it over here. It really does become, a fantastic tool when you are producing this show for somebody else. Maybe you're the person who's sitting behind the scenes, bringing those guests in, putting them up, changing the scenes around. For you to sit there with your headphones on, monitoring this, a really powerful little tool to just be able to have that fine control over the volume, again, rather than needing to look at small little dials that don't move very much. This is a game changer. I really love this as a feature. This would be, to be honest, this would be the main reason why I would choose this Loupedeck, for the fact that we can adjust volume like this on individual guests. We can also assign this, as you can see down here, input levels. So interview would select everybody. If you'd only got one person on, interview would be fine. The movie, again, this adjusts the movie volume of all the videos that are coming through. I would hope that maybe in the future we would be able to allocate, if you've got different videos, maybe you've got a series of testimonial videos that you're playing or something like that, it would be great to be able to select those individuals in the same way that we can select the individual guests rather than just interview. But hey, maybe by the time you're watching this, that might even be a feature, and you'll be thinking, what's he talking about? There it is. Who knows? The other thing it says on here, reset, I'm not quite sure of the terming of this, but when I've got this guest one on here, or let me demonstrate this with interview, if I slide interview over, in fact, we'll pop it on this side here. Notice that on my screen over here, we've got the sound levels. I can adjust the volume of interview, and you can see that's going up and down over there. Notice that when I press it, it mutes it. So in the same way that I can adjust the individual volumes of the guests, I can tap on here and I can mute them out. Now, I'd love to see, again, we're new at playing with this. I think it'd be a great update if when somebody is muted, it could go to red text, or it could change it to mute or something on there, just so it's dead obvious to us from the little Loupedeck controller that we have muted somebody. So that's what it means when it's talking about reset here, it's muting them. Sound effects might be another one, system audio. Again, you can just allocate those and you can just, it's the things that are up here in the sound levels, but instead of having to bring your mouse up, land it on there and adjust the slider, you can now do it on a dial over here. I don't know that I would particularly use this, but again, it's here as a feature. You might find this is a good way to use this. If I were to drag this over, select overlay, and with my overlays tab open, notice that I can now move myself up and down on here, and then when I press it, it'll choose the one that I've landed on and play it. The same thing can be done with scenes. So let's drag scenes across to this bottom one. And then if I scroll this, I can now jump between this. And again, if I press it, it takes me into that scene. So that might be another nice way for you to work through this if you actually like the idea of having the scenes open there and clicking between them and then pressing as you land on it. It's pretty cool. I don't know that I would use it personally like that. So what I wanted to set up with you, we've got this top row in here at the moment. I really would want to come down here to my scenes, and under this folder of run scene, notice that it's listing out all the scenes that I've got over here, but it doesn't put them in the order that you've got them. It puts them in alphabetical order. Again, that would be quite useful if it was able to work it down in the order that you've got them. Certainly if you've got multiple folders, you shouldn't be doing that now anyway, really, with profiles that are now in version 3.9, rather than having multiple folders and everything in there under one profile. From Ecamm, you should be having different profiles and keeping it tidy, but rant over. So if I've got front, comments, screen share. Now notice that I have got a couple of folders. And the way I'm going to set this up is I want this to be, here's just me on my own, and I want to have a workspace for that. So these are the buttons across the top. I'm going to put some scenes in there that I can press between. And then what I'd like to do is, if I had a guest come on, all of a sudden I want both of us to be on there when we're doing the screen share or looking at the comments. So rather than me cluttering this up or wondering where I'm going, I'm going to create a new workspace for, as it says here, me plus one. And then I could clone that again and say me plus two. I will know in advance whether I've got, me and a guest, or maybe I'm expecting two people to come on, and I can just jump across the bottom here and select the numbers as to which workspace I'm in. So I'm going to get on and put some of these in. And so front camera is going to be my first one. Comments will be my second one. Screen share my third one. Outro. Notice I deliberately named these plus one. When I create a next folder, I would call it me plus two. And then the difference really is this is me on front camera, front plus one. Front is just me talking like this, and front plus one would be me plus a guest. In the same way that comments is like this for me, and comments plus one is me and a guest sharing the screen. Screen share looks like this on my own. Screen share looks like this plus two. I just know that when I'm on here and it's just me on my own, I can press front and we're on this camera. I can go to my comments and away I go. I don't have to have any of those guest buttons and things on here. In fact, I'm going to take these ones off, unallocate these buttons down the side here. I click on it and it brings all these on, and I can turn them off like this. Because I've got no guests on this scene, all right? I also need to go down them and turn off the reset button. I'm forgetting that. So it's actually the rotation and there's the press. So you've got two actions on each button. So we remove the rotation. We just need to remove the actual pressing as well. And then when I click off there, this is all blanked out now. So the only thing I might want to allocate onto this first scene when it's just me, and what I haven't showed you here actually, is that at the minute we're looking in everything, if we want to put a filter on of just the press buttons or the rotates, we can now just click rotates, and all you're seeing now are these. So it's actually thinned this out a bit. So I haven't got an interview because we'll be on that next workspace. Maybe I want to adjust the movie volume. Let's put that up onto this one. I ought to have my own microphone. So I'll put primary mic. Let's put that over to this side. So that's nice and obvious for me. That's my own microphone. Sound effects and system audio. So I've got those ones down the left side there, movies over here on the right. Now I've still got space for other things down here if I want them. I think what we probably could do is have another workspace on here for sound effects. If you'd got claps and sirens and things like that you like to play, you could create a whole nother space for this with sound effects. But I reckon that's about as much as I would have, and I'm quite happy that I've got some space on here. So rather than me creating this and then having another page where I could click on here and go, okay, let's add a new page, and we've got another lot of blanks. Notice that I've still got those down the side. I don't want those. So what we're going to do is I click down here on the dots, and I can say delete that second page. Now I come up here into workspace. Again, something I would love to see is a way to clone this, but there isn't one. We're going to come down here and create a new one that this new workspace is called Me Plus Guest. We probably should just rename this first one actually to Me. Okay, and now we do the same thing again, and I'm going to click over here and I'll bring in those same. I'm going to turn off the filter, so I want it to be all of these, not just the rotations. We add hide controls, live demo mode. We add a view count. Why don't we keep that at the same? We're going to come down to our scenes, and instead of having front, I've now got front +1. I've got comments +1. I've got screen share +1. And I've got my outro video +1. I ought to keep my own microphone. So primary mic is going to stay up here on the left. Now what we're going to do then, we've got a guest on this one. We're going to bring in guest 1. I want to just bring in interview first. If we've only got one person on, then we can use interview, and moving this dial is adjusting this one over here in the sound levels. The reason we'd want to do this is if we're just adjusting guest 1 and we can allocate them over here to the next one down, if that main sound level for interview is too low and we've got our guest up high, it's not going to override that interview setting. So we need to get that one right first of all. Really, these different guests are coming in if you've got multiple people inside it, so you're not adjusting the overall mics from the guests as it is with interview, but you're going into the individual. So interview should be fine at the top here. This is the one that you're going to adjust in the same way that I'm adjusting my own mic over there. But if you find that over on interview there, the guest is too low, you can pull them up individually. So that's kind of as much as we need, or we could put those other ones back in, the sound effects and things like that. You get the idea. This is Me Plus Guest, and now when I'm pressing down here, I'm going between these ones, and you'll see that these are another lot of scenes that we've made for Me Plus Guest. I could come over here now to Ecamm and create another set of scenes in a new folder that said Me Plus 2, and all I'm going to do is copy this again. Unfortunately, I can't clone it, but I'm going to copy this again and say this is interview guest 1, guest 2. All right, you get the idea? Now, what I want to do down here is allocate these under these buttons at the bottom. Now, to allocate our workspaces to these buttons at the bottom, we need to make sure, if you've still got that on, turn off that filter so you can see everything. This little compass symbol is your navigation, and your workspaces are listed. So Me is going under button number 1, Me Plus Guest is going under number 2, and it will keep going. Me Plus 2 Guests will come under 3. I actually like this because I think it seems quite obvious to me. If I'm there on my own, it's number 1. If I'm there with somebody else, then there's 2 of us, so it's under button number 2. And notice that when I'm doing this now, these dials down the side that were static before because they weren't moving with pages, because we've allocated workspaces instead of pages along the bottom here, we can program the dials and the buttons to move with it. So number 1, as I say, this is me, this is what I would work with on my own. If I know I've got a guest coming on, then I would change this up and I would say, right, okay, I've got an interview today, or part way through even, you know, I start off on my own and then my guest comes on, and now I'm on number 2 and I'm adjusting volumes and I can change my scenes that I can see them on. Yeah, I really like this. I think it's super powerful. I'm excited to see, because I can only think that more and more will come with this integration, really, with Ecamm in here. I know from talking to Ken and Glenn about this, it is just sort of, okay, well, what do you want? What do you want this to do? This is really early stages. We're about a month into it. What can you allocate to dials? I think there could be some really good updates in here, like the camera effects, where we could actually adjust the saturation and the brightness and things. Would be really good to allocate to buttons. Something that Owen and I were playing around with is actually you can put scrolls on here as well. So instead of dragging your mouse left and right, let me just quickly show you. So if I come back over to number 1 on here and we come to comments, for instance, and I can turn off these features on here, what it means is instead of me clicking a mouse and kind of moving these bits around like this, if I wanted to, I can actually come over to here to my mouse controls. So I think to do this, really, I would create a new profile and I would probably call it design or something like that. And it means that over here then, if I come back over this to controls and we're looking at the mouse, and if we went down to mouse drag left, let's put that over here, and mouse click vertical left. I need to come back over here and change this workspace over a second. Let's put design under number 7. And then when I click over here, so my mouse drag horizontally can help me just align it this way. And vertically, I can be lining it up this way. So to just make sure that I'm moving click by click like this, pixel by pixel, it's actually quite a nice way to do this. And actually the default one that kept getting put in here is this mouse wheel scroll here. This is like doing a pinch and a zoom. So between them on here, so this is the scroll feature that you would do on your mouse if you are using a trackpad. It's the kind of pinch and zoom that you're doing. So we can resize it with this scrolling feature. We can move it left and right, and you can actually allocate things like left click plus option or plus command, and there's loads of things that you could do with this. I don't know, maybe that feels a bit gimmicky, but I know certainly with the Magic Mouse, sometimes you put it in place and you let go and it seems to move it or resize it. I quite like the idea of the accuracy of this. And I've got it over here on a workspace called design, so I can just come back over here and none of that stuff's there in my buttons. So does that help you? Is that enough there? So once I'm happy with this, I can minimize this thing. It'll sit up there, and I can change between profiles if I increase them and add other profiles in. Now, I did say I would save this out, and although it's not complete and it might not be exactly as you want it, let me just show you this again. If nothing else, I'm showing you how you can export one of these profiles. So what you could do, actually, potentially, you could set this up for somebody else. Maybe you're doing the design work, or you've got a designer doing this for you. This could be set up, exported from here, imported on somebody else's Loupedeck on their computer, and it will bring all these buttons in the same way it did with Ecamm's preset one that they made for us. So I can click down on here. I select Adrian Salisbury, and I say export profile. I'll call it Adrian Salisbury Loupedeck. I'm going to put it down here onto my desktop for now. Export this out, and this will be available in the downloads if you would like to have this as a starting point to go from. If you at the other end want to be able to import this in, you come down to the bottom of here where it says profiles, import profile, and away you go. On the desktop, mine is there. Click on that, bring it in, and then you'll have this sitting in front of you. And yeah, let me know if you've downloaded it and you enjoy it. Customize it. So would love to hear from you, really. What do you think to this? Can you see how powerful this could be? And maybe if you've got this and you've got thoughts or ideas as to what you'd like to see in here, let me know, and I will pass this forward to the guys at Ecamm. I'm really excited. I think the hardware is absolutely in place, and would love to see what we can do going forwards with this. As ever, if you found this useful, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe. We've got loads of videos like this all about Ecamm and the tools and that go with it. Look forward to seeing you in another video.